Morning! So this is day 2 of the Pilgrims Way. So last night we stayed at the Watercress Line Campsite, and the reason why it's called the Watercress Line because by the side of it is a heritage railway line which we'll go past in a moment as we head back down onto the Pilgrims Way. So today it's quite a short one today. It was a rather wet night, so my gear got a bit wet. I wanted to recharge some electrics and have out, so we're staying at Alton, which is about 10 miles away. But along the way today we will go to Chawton. Chawton is famous for Jane Austen, where she used to live, and there's Chawton House as well. And then after that we'll head into Alton, and Alton's got its own little history as well, which I will tell you about as we get there. So as I say, today I think it's about 10.5 miles, just an easy short one. Right, so let's get going. So some of you may recognise this blue one here. So Thomas. So the Watercress Line is a heritage line. It was a line that used to run from London to Southampton, although over the years gone from steam locomotives to diesel. Trains got faster, and then this line wasn't used at all because they used an electrified line from London to Southampton, meaning this became redundant. Once this became redundant, it became a heritage line, and the station platform is being used in several films. You can travel along the Watercress Line, and as we've mentioned already, the Watercress Line is referring to the watercress beds around Austen. Anyway, we're going to get back on the Pilgrims Way. So this is a diesel train. We're just passing through Ropley at the moment. The surroundings of the village have well-nourished fields, which is great for the local flowers and a great source for local bees that have collected nectar from this area for centuries to produce honey, which is used in the production of mead as far back as the Saxons and medieval times. William the Conqueror is said to have obtained his honey from Ropley. The higher parts of Ropley were originally part of the Grand Underweld Forest, which originally covered much of southern England, although pockets of woodlands are only seen today as most of the forest has been taken for the development of buildings and agricultural fields. So as we pass through Ropley, I just wanted to mention about the campsite I stayed at last night. It's called the Watercress Line Campsite and Lodges. Now it was quite expensive. It was £25 for the night, and it doesn't matter if you've got a circus tent or a one-man bivvy, you still pay £25 for it, and that's all year round. And what you get for that? Well, I mean, I've stayed at campsites all over the place, and generally you're talking between £5 to £10 on average. So So to say it's one that's £25, you would think it's going to have a few facilities. Those facilities consisted of a shower block and somewhere to wash your pots and just a bit of grass. Not much for the price. So when I booked in, there was no one there to book in. I had to ring a number. The person said, oh, just put yourself anywhere in the field. And then in the morning, never saw anybody again as I left. So for £25, I would have seen somebody, because I could have just gone on that field, put my tent up and left in the morning and not paid anything for what service I got. And the other thing was, you have to pay in advance. And then 2 days later I got a text to say, it said, we've decided to allow you to come and stay at our site. Now the funny thing is I got my money and yet you were going to refuse me at a later point. It doesn't sound right to me. Anyway, let's keep going. Well, the signpost says to go this side of the field, and I know why. There's a couple of these cows, a bit frisky. There's a couple of young calves, I think they're all bullocks. There's a couple of females. Overall, majority of bullocks. Morning. The earliest documented evidence of human existence is from the later Bronze Age, around 1000 years before Christ. Found close to here is a barrow which would have been used as a burial ground. Also near here, a gold necklace was found that dates back to the same period. Is where the tumulus was originally, and it was meant to be one of the oldest tumuluses in the country. It's long gone now, has been levelled out recently for the wheat field. But we're going to head on through the woodlands now for the next probably a kilometre. So the area I'm walking through at the moment is called Old Down Wood. From other pilgrims that have walked through this area, they've mentioned that if you keep quiet and wander through the woods, you may see the odd deer. Now I did see something rustle through towards the back, but I couldn't really tell what it was. But on the other hand, it should be called Butterfly Wood, because as I walk along here, the amount of butterflies that keep poking out. There's butterflies galore through this woodland, and it's not just one variety. Bit of a mixed weather day today, scattered showers, and it's quite warm, quite sticky actually, a bit breezy as well. Last night it rained most of the night, not heavy rain, just quite drizzly rain, although my tent was quite wet this morning. Anyway, we're heading to 4 marks, and then after that we're heading to Chawton, and then beyond that is Alton. A large country house up a woodside farm. I'm not sure what flag that is. Any ideas? Well, that's one large urn. And we've got some Chinese dragons. Or Chinese lions, I'm not sure. The Chinese, I know that. I think they're dragons. Anyway, I'm going to continue on here. About 2.5 kilometres to go, and we should be at Chawton House. Lower Woodside Farm. So this is the churchyard of St Nicholas. Towards the back of the church we can see this is the two graves of the mother and sister of Jane Austen, both named Cassandra. On the left, died on the 18th day of January 1827, so 10 years after Jane died, aged 87. On the right we have Cassandra Elizabeth Austen, who died on the 22nd day of March 1845, aged 72. There's another couple of small graves here, like a footstone to the graves. So CEA, Cassandra Elizabeth Austen, and CA, Cassandra Austen, being Jane Austen's mother. As well as the mother and sister of Jane Austen, came across a few other graves. So this side, all this line here, are all the Bradfords. That's Edward Ridley Colborne Bradford. Now, if I'm correct, he was an army officer, but you can see KCVO, KCST, KCB, and BART. I think that's baronet. And on the opposite side, we also see knights. A few there buried in the overgrowth. I presume the little small sculpture in the centre of the picture now is of Jane Austen carrying a book. The village of Chawton dates to the 13th century, where a royal manor house was built. John St John served as deputy to Edward I in Scotland, and Henry III visited the manor frequently. The present Chawton house was built by John Knight at the time when the Battle of the Spanish Armada taking place.
Edward Austen Knight was the third eldest brother of Jane Austen. When Edward was 12 years old, he was presented to Thomas and Catherine Knight, who were relatives of his father and were very wealthy. They were childless and took an interest in Edward, making him their legal heir in about 1783. When Thomas died in 1794, he left Godmersham Park Estate to his wife for the rest of her life, with the remainder of the estate going to Edward. She left Godmersham before her death to move to Canterbury. Edward inherited 3 estates from Thomas Knight: Steventon, Chawton and Godmersham. In 1812, due to a stipulation in Catherine Knight's will, Edward changed his legal name to Knight.
Chawton Cottage in front. This is the home of where Jane Austen spent the last 8 years of her life, mother and sister, and where she wrote her most famous novels. But before the Austens moved in, it was a farmhouse and a public house from 1781 to 1787. Afterwards, Edward Austen gifted the house to his mother and sister, whom both lived there until their deaths in 1827 and 1845. As we continue walking through Chawton village, we're going to head up towards Alton now, the market town, which has also got a few bits of history of its own. As we arrive to the outskirts of Alton, this area in front of us is called the Butts. The Butts dates back to the medieval times and had earth target mounds to one end, which probably would be this end, and were used as a range by men of the town for compulsory training in the use of longbows. This training, which was enforced by a series of laws from 1442, passed to ensure that the Crown had a dependable force of skilled archers to call upon. Alton is a market town famed for being in the heart of Jane Austen country. The Treaty of Alton was signed in 1101 between William the Conqueror's eldest son, Robert, Duke of Normandy, and his brother Henry I of England. After the death of William I, Robert ruled in Normandy and Rufus ruled in England. Rufus was killed in the New Forest by an accident with an arrow, and his brother Henry became king here. In 1101, Robert of Normandy is said to have landed at Portsmouth and marched to Winchester. From there, he was told the king was northeast of the city, near Alton. Robert set out to meet Henry, where he found King Henry and his army, and this is where the treaty was signed. Notice in there the street is called Lincoln Green, as we're next to the books, people firing their arrows and practicing using a longbow. Lincoln Green also associates to Robin Hood. I've read a lot about his folklores and talked about it on some of my walks. Lincoln Green is what Robin Hood used to wear, and he used to be a master of the bow. In 1642, the Battle of Alton occurred here during the English Civil War. The Church of St Lawrence was the scene of a massacre when parliamentarians took the town and killed perhaps 60 royalists. Still today you can see the bullet holes in the church walls. In 1996, a hoard of 256 Iron Age or Celtic coins were found in a nearby field. Today's value approximately £240 million. This is the Quaker meeting house. It was built in 1672 at a cost of £204 and is believed to be the second oldest meeting house in the world still active. So at the moment we're just heading up towards Alton Cemetery to come across an interesting grave. Another part of Alton's historical past has been the location of the brutal murder of Sweet Fanny Adams in 1887. She and her friend Minnie Warner, both aged 8, along with Fanny's sister Lizzie, aged 7, were out on a walk on August 24th, 1867. When at 1:30 in the afternoon they were approached by Frederick Baker, a solicitor's clerk who had evidently been drinking. He gave Minnie 1.5 pennies to buy some sweets and offered Fanny half a penny if she would leave with him. She took the money but declined the offer, where then Baker picked her up and carried her into a nearby field, where he brutally murdered Fanny and then cutting up her body, where many pieces have never been found even today. This caused public outcry in the UK, and Baker was hanged on Christmas Eve of 1867 outside the Winchester Gaol. The found body parts of Fanny were buried in Alton Cemetery. Fanny Adams were a headstone which was paid for by public subscription in 1874. Since then, Sweet Fanny Adams has been used as an alternative to a swear word as a reference to Sweet FA.
Several years later, the British Navy began to give the sailors small meat tins as rations. When the tins were opened, there was little meat in them at all. The sailors thought that the small amount of meat was similar to the small found remains of Sweet Fanny Adams. So the term Sweet FA became a phrase meaning small or nothing.
To the memory of Fanny Adams, aged 8 years and 4 months, fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him, which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Matthew 10 verse 28. Rest in peace, Fanny.
Well, that's the end of day 2 of the Pilgrims Way. So hopefully you'll like to join me for the next episode, where we'll be going from Alton to Puttenham. Along the way, we're going to pass the founder of the Scout Movement house and Farnham. So until then, take care, look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye, hikers.